Greetings. It's Professor Griff, and of course, this is Sirius Mindz RNTV, going live from the vehicle. All right. Didn't get a chance to make it back home to the lab, so I could actually do a decent show in order to have this conversation with the family. All right. So I think it's befitting that we just kind of had the conversation, as sometimes we often have to have a family conversation about what's going on. I think it's a beautiful thing that we do. All right. So I'm gonna wait for this thing to populate. But while it's populating, let me kind of lay this out. Quan, what's good with you? I'm having to go live from the vehicle. All right. But while we're waiting, I think it would be befitting for us to get a deeper understanding of what we're going to talk about. It's going to be a brief talk, not very long. The January 6th Capitol riots, when it comes to the insurrection, we're talking about bringing down the government of the United States, overturning the election, interrupting the election, and just kind of basically all of that and above. I think the trials now have been going on now, if I'm not mistaken, for 2 years. There's over 900 some odd people charged. I don't know how many arrested. So the trials may go on for a few more years. Just 16 people are on trial, I believe, from the Oath Keepers. And then it's the 3%ers, and then it's over a dozen white supremacist hate groups that are quote unquote, and they're labeling these individuals as patriot groups. So I'm not sure how they're painting the picture, or even how you're interpreting the language of racism, white supremacy, and how this thing works. But nonetheless, there are trials going on. I think today they've convicted someone and gave them the most lengthiest sentence, which is 7.5 years. All right. And he wasn't even one of the individuals that assaulted one of the police officers. We have to keep in mind that people died, people were injured. It was a very traumatic experience. It was a very telling experience about how secure government officials are, not only in the Capitol, but the quote-unquote halls of justice in America. So we have to be very mindful that this sent a tidal wave and a signal throughout the globe on exactly what America is capable of dealing with these particular 4,000 some odd individuals whom they refused in the beginning to write off as domestic terrorists. And at the same time, refusing to use the heavy hand of justice like they have often done with a peaceful protest such as Black Lives Matter. And we all know, before you start putting your comments up, that a lot of the violence that took place with Black Lives Matter were not from black people inside of Black Lives Matter. So when you look into it, it was Antifa and a few other white, left to middle, left-wing kind of organizations and groups that was also being funded by the same individuals to cause this conflict inside of the peaceful protests. So I know a lot of times when you mention Black Lives Matter, the social engineering that went on and is still going on right now would have you as a black person say it. Even some so-called progressive white people say, well, weren't they funded by George Soros? where the other side was funded by George Soros also. It is called the Hegelian dialectic principle. All right, so we have to keep these particular things in mind as we begin to discuss the wide range and the dynamics of what's going on with these particular trials that are happening right now. All right. So even if you, Tyler, even if you say plants, the question now becomes who planted them? The question now becomes why did they plant them? What is the end game? This says more than 950 people are charged with federal crimes, some already convicted of serious charge of sedition. And if you do not know what the term sedition means, go look the word up. What does the term sedition actually mean? All right. Like our good brother, Dr. Neil Foley Jr. said, white supremacy plays both sides of the chessboard. All right. They may fund both sides to bring about its ultimate goal. All right. Some already have been convicted of the serious charge of sedition for trying to overthrow the government. That is a major thing, overthrowing the government. All right. While they've always put this on far right and not so left wing groups. And you need to know the difference. What is a left wing group as opposed to what is a right wing group? The right wing of what? The left of what? The right of what? We need to know this terminology and these concepts so we can begin to understand the dynamics that's taking place here with these trials. Now, I know a lot of people are not listening to the trials, but, you know, when it's coming up on every news outlet, it's hard to ignore. 2 years ago, on January 6, 2021, a crowd of thousands attacked the United States Capitol in an effort to stop the certification of the 2020 election results, spurred on by false claims the election had been rigged against the Republican incumbent Donald Trump. All right. Now, this commander-in-chief gave the marching orders for more than 4,000 people to go march on the Capitol to take their country back. Take it back from whom? Take it back from whom? So let's understand how this thing begins to now play out, not only in the psyche of those that were QAnon followers that believed in quote unquote conspiracy theories, all right, that actually took physical action by traveling thousands of miles to overthrow the government. Some bringing weapons, some bringing a few other things. Bombs were placed around the city. Keep this in mind, family. Bombs were placed around the city. All right? Weapons were brought into the White House. Officers were killed. All right? So the seriousness of this particular thing, I think a lot of times we need to make very, 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 very clear. All right? Simply because y'all know and understand if this was some other complexion of people that have done this, they would have tracked them down the next day. And the sentences, according to the sentencing guidelines, would not have been on the low end. All right? So this one individual today that convicted, the sentencing guideline, he was facing more than 15 years, but got the low end of the sentencing guideline, which was 7 years. All right? The assault was ultimately unsuccessful, but it has set off an alarm bells about the stability of the United States democracy and the growing influence of anti-democratic elements within the Republican Party. Racist, white supremacists. We could say domestic terrorism is on the rise. All right? So it looks like I'm losing a lot of light out here. But I think this is something that we need to look into and begin to look into it a lot further. Let me turn my car on and see if I can, all right, get another view. All right, that's a little bit better. All right, so I think we need to start looking, listening with a closer inner ear, all right, and listen to the language that they've been using. It says on the second anniversary of the riot, President Joe Biden is set to hold a White House ceremony in the East Room Friday to commemorate the deadly events that unfolded that particular day. All right, so he handed out awards to those that have survived it. All right, and yet again, at the crux of this are black people that have actually defended individuals that were in the White House that day. It says the Department of Justice on Wednesday said that 192 of those defendants have been sentenced to time behind bars, and 484 have pled guilty to various crimes. All right, an investigation committee in the U.S. House of Representatives recommended criminal charges last month for key political figures linked to the attack, including Trump, who was presiding at the time to encourage the rioters. So yes, they should bring charges against the former president, the ex-president, Donald Trump. All right, and if they don't, then I think we should kind of really look at how justice is really handed out or dealt with in America. All right? We need to take a closer look at how it happens. So I'm only on YouTube as we speak right now because I'm not home, able to get on Facebook or some of the other, or Instagram. All right? So I'm just kind of coming on, having a brief, basic conversation about the trials that are going on, dealing with the January 6th riots that took place which were designed to overthrow the United States government. All right, the January 6th Capitol riots, charges, convictions have been levied against 900 and some odd individuals for over the past 2.5 years. Let me know what you guys think. Yes, it's an insurrection. We need to look up the term insurrection and find out what it really means. It's an insurrection. This is the insurrection. All right? This is the January 6th Capitol riots / insurrection of the United States government of America. All right? This is Professor Griff. And like I said, I'm going live from my vehicle. And of course, I don't like to do this because I got to keep my head on a swivel. All right? Regardless of where you at. White side of town, black side of town. And yeah, I don't play that kind of mess. Talking about, well, Professor Griff was on the wrong side of town when he was going live and yada, yada, yada happened. Yeah, right. Any side of town is the wrong side of town if your head is not on a swivel. All right, this is Professor Griff signing out. Sirius Mindz for Sirius Mindz. Seriously, I love y'all to life. Family, please do me a favor. If you want to take a firearms class or you want to get involved in developing an urban tactical mindset, text me and I will send you the flyer for the classes coming up this weekend and next weekend. Please hit your brother up, 678-557-2919. 678-557-2919, Professor Griff. Of course, all right, we cover a wide variety of things in the class, so make sure you participate in the class. Thank you very much, Quan. Really appreciate you. All right, it's Professor Griff signing out. Sirius Mindz attract serious minds. Seriously. Peace.